G'day and welcome to another episode of Kiwi Car Life and the age-old summer tyre debate. Do you spend the extra and get the, in theory, better Michelin Pilot Sport 4, or do you cheap out and go for the old faithful Potenza RE003? Well, today we're going to find out by comparing the handling, acceleration and quietness of these two very common summer tyres.
The first test we're going to do is to see how well these two tyres go around corners. And to do that, I'm going to thieve some Civic RS wheels adorned in Pilot Sport 4s on a very similar tyre size to the ones found on my Accord, whip it through some corners 3 times and take the average G-force value from each. And now let's do the same with the RE003s. Next, it's time to see how well these tyres accelerate under the same conditions on the same on-ramp. Let's look at the RE003 and the Pilot Sport 4 back to back. And finally, the quietness test. I drove along the same stretch of motorway with the cruise control set at 100 km an hour with an app on my phone that measures how loud the volume is, and here are the results.
I think in terms of their acceleration grip, the difference is pretty negligible really. Both of them grip really well, but do eventually start to scrub if you push them too hard, and axle tramp, especially if you're at higher RPM. In terms of the lateral grip, definitely the Pilot Sport 4 is the victor. In terms of quietness, they're pretty similar, but the Pilot Sport 4 was ever so slightly quieter. I've also heard that Pilot Sport 4s tend to last a little longer than RE003s perhaps as well. And what I like about these two tyres is two things. First of all, they're not screechy tyres, they're scrubby tyres. So if you start to lose traction, they go rather than go and screeching away and making a horrible racket, which is good because you can have fun and sort of push the tyres without everyone hearing you coming from the tyre squeal. And the other thing that's really nice is that they're just so predictable. You know, if you start to push them too much, you just get predictable understeer like that, and you just either back off the throttle a little bit or reduce your steering angle. I was intentionally trying to make it understeer there, but you know, you just sort of reduce your steering angle or back off the throttle response, and it just brings it back into line, which is really nice. That's what's so good about them, is that the grip to speed graph looks like this, where you build speed, you get more and more and more grip, and then you hit the peak, and then it starts to just sort of drop off ever so slightly, and you know, eventually it'll slowly end up into understeer. Whereas cheaper tyres will look more like a sawtooth, where your grip will build and then you hit the peak and then just go bang, and you're left with no grip, and that's where you get the sudden understeer or the sudden lift off oversteer, where they just sort of snap on you. And that's what's great about these tyres, is that they're really predictable. They're pretty quiet, they're reasonably durable, they're not too expensive, and they handle really well, as you would have seen. They even perform pretty well on track as well. They do, certainly the RE003s in my experience, they do heat soak eventually. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Kiwi Car Life, and I will look forward to seeing you again next time.